All right, thanks for making the move with us from the broadcast side over here to clickondetroit.com as we continue our conversation about fake news and how we move forward. Angie, Nancy, Darcy, and Ray all still here with me. And Darcy, you just said something interesting as we were making the transition, because I was joking about people say the media really has to get its act together. I say, well, yeah, I'll bring it up at the next meeting. We really don't work in lockstep, and yet, go ahead.
Well, I was just saying that I used to get in these arguments all the time as a journalist, and it was a pointless exercise because everybody's an expert on the media because it's they have personal ownership because they watch you on television or listen to whomever on the radio. But then I said we were culpable too because we've been kind of isolationists. You know, we don't invite the average Joe to come see how things are done. You know, there's no kind of two-way conversation beyond maybe when we're covering the story to some extent. And so there could be an opportunity now, especially with this burst in fake news, just get the basic knowledge of how things are done so that then you at least have some barometer, right?
For an understanding.
What's the distinction between somebody putting together that fake site and someone putting out, you know, the online free press or you know, for newscasts?
This is my formal invitation to all of you to come to the U of M fake news class and talk directly to people who are engaging in these questions and who care about these things, and maybe we can increase the capacity that way and start with a small group.
Yeah, I can see how that would go on Twitter. Devin Skillion helping with fake news class. I knew it.
I've had a lot of people since in the last few months talk about how can they support news sites like the Free Press and what are ways that they can use to evaluate the quality of the news that they're getting. I think there really is an interest among people to figure out how to do this. And there's some pretty basic things that anyone can do, which is when you read an account, if it sounds really outlandish, like so outrageous you can't believe it, Google whatever the keywords from it are. See if any other news outlets have reported on it. If there are links in the text that are there in an attempt to apparently support what they're saying, click through to the links or even hover your mouse over it and see what it goes to. If it goes to like a YouTube channel or a personal website, like that may not be such a reputable link, you know, and to look at the quality of the way that sometimes in newspapers we're a little stodgy in our language, but we don't, legitimate news sites don't tend to say, you put things in really wild, like,
intensifying language.
Intensifying language. She exclaimed the, you know,
and here's something,
insisted.
One simple rule, like 101, one source story. If you got a one source story, that's usually a problem.
Or same source story over and over.
So putting the comment on isolation, like on journalists being isolated or the media being isolated in their or having an insular world, and then the idea of linking, I think one of the concepts that the web has really provided is it's really easy to be able to provide a credit for pieces of a story, and you can be iterative and you can build off of other stories. And I think journalists and media outlets need to, and the Free Press has been doing a great job of this recently, and they've been linking to other stories frankly from competitors, because there's a realization that it is about trying to find the truth, not just trying to say we're the only ones who can provide it to you.
I'm a little duplicitous on this, I suppose, torn about it, because I am old school enough to, you know, I know that there's a certain set of standards in place at the New York Times and the Washington Post, and so these old guard places,
the Free Press,
the Detroit Free Press, WDIV-TV. But I also have come to understand that there is a lot of good reporting being done in very unusual places. The ACLU now has a journalism arm that has been very, very active in Flint, for example. Politico, I mean, there really is some really interesting. So it's difficult to say, well, only trust the old guard, because that's not wise either.
No one should only trust the old guard. There is, you know, blogs like Jezebel, or everyone's freaking out when Teen Vogue does some great journalism, which is a little insulting, because yes, teenage girls are interested in things that aren't just makeup.
Teen Vogue has been seen as a leader on a lot of the political news.
You can find in some of these outlets that are, you know, the Concourse on Deadspin there's some really, and a lot of this stuff is not necessarily fresh reporting. BuzzFeed has won major awards in the last couple of years for doing really hard-hitting investigative journalism, and this is a website that was most known for like lists of cute puppies and stuff like that. But they have, I mean, they won a Scripps Award for investigative data reporting yesterday that I think was about deplorable conditions in foster agencies across America. I mean, they're doing really amazing work, but oh, I had a point. Yes, correct. Correct. There is great stuff being found, but those same standards that I'm talking about, looking for the sources, looking for how the language is used,
Same
looking
thing.
for in places like Jezebel or Gawker. R.A.P. Gawker, or these will use different kinds of these different kinds of language, but at the same time, and they're going to use more, inflammatory, but the same principles. Look for the sourcing. Look for what they're using to back it up.
And it goes along with that, Angie. I think a lot of the fake news that I see has some dead giveaways in it. It's amazing how many spelling errors there are.
Right. So I'm going to
grammatical errors.
I'm going to challenge that a little bit because I think there are some complex things that happen. So the Stanford study that came out from their education group, they showed a site where there was only 1 or 2 words that were different in the name of the organization. So something that was the American Academy of Pediatricians, or College of Pediatricians versus the American Academy of Pediatrics. Two very professionally done websites. One organization has 200 members, has been identified as a hate group from the Southern Law Poverty Center. The other one has thousands and thousands of pediatricians. It's the organization for that profession. And college students, no matter whether they agreed with the issue, which was about parenting, gay parenting, or parenting by gay couples, college students, even if they disagreed with it, could not communicate or articulate the credibility issues with the hate hate group's website.
That's tricky.
So it is a little, it can be very, I'm not saying that those aren't things that you see, but it can be more sophisticated than you.
Well, if you watch Homeland on Showtime, there is I guess what I would call a high-tech fake news puppy mill that we're watching being run, and it's very, very sophisticated. And my hunch is that's closer to truth than fiction right now.
That's my understanding. Other news aides and some of your competitors have been interviewing these folks that that run these Twitter bots that can, put together computational propaganda, which is really
all designed to build on confirmation bias.
Exactly.
All designed to build on how do you encircle via social media networks. You have the ability to basically be cocooned in a warm layer of what you want to hear.
Which is maybe the best advice we can give anybody, is to get a little bit out of your silo. Not so that you have your opinion changed, but so that you're exposed to a wider spectrum of thought.
So my job is to write opinion pieces that are attempt to persuade you to see my point of view, and being challenged on my argument never makes it a worse piece. I need to be able to defend this argument. If I can't defend this argument to my editor, to a friend at the bar, to you, to anyone, then it's not a very good argument. And so I think that's good. Obviously this is my business, but I think for anyone, if you have an opinion and it can't stand up to a challenge, it's not a very good opinion. Get better opinions.
And this is why I think that truly we're about to enter into what I think is going to be a golden age of journalism. I think that there is some very positive news on the horizon in terms of our ability to be able to see greater investment into journalism, to see greater levels of importance being provided by the consumers of media, and I think this is going to end up being very, very good for journalism.
I hope that's true. Are you?
Me too. I have mixed. Look, we did see an uptick in subscriptions, right, in the New York Times and the Washington Post, so we know that there was a cause-effect thing there. But I'm guilty. I'm one of those folks that's absolutely guilty. There was a period of time that I could not stomach any Trump voice, any Trump anything. It was just a period of time where I couldn't do that. And this is my whole
this is
life,
what you do.
Former journalist, publicist, so I've got to pay attention to it. So I've been kind of slow walking there. So I'm a little concerned that there are many others, more others like me who are not.
There's definitely information fatigue right now that is loading up a lot of people.
Exactly. So I think what we have to do as individuals, so journalism and as a profession, that is one way of combating fake news. But as individuals, I think we need to think about things like, have I read this whole thing before I shared it with someone else? Don't share it if you can't verify what's there. Let's stop it from going out beforehand. Have I looked at more than the first result in my Google search when I look up the American College of Pediatrics? Things like that.
If you can be the one to break the chain of a bad email that's going around and say, look, this is not right, that's an act of responsibility right now.
I feel like I get more and more people saying, what can I do?
Right.
And that's.
We got to leave it there. Good luck with your class.
Yeah,
this
thank
fall.
you very much.
It gets better and better, absolutely. We'll check it out. Thank you for being here as well. Appreciate you making the trip over to clickondetroit.com. We'll see you again next week over on the broadcast side for Flashpoint.